What is up, my friends and fellow fans of the MCU? The Thunderbolts has now arrived. I posted my reaction, I posted my review, and now it's time to dive into some spoilers. This is quite literally the hardest thing when it comes to talking about a movie like this, just as a reviewer, because you want to talk about this stuff. This is the sauce that you want to get cooking, you know what I mean? And so there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to kind of take this in sections and just go through and give my thoughts on a lot of the spoiler territory type stuff. If you haven't seen the Thunderbolts, this is a spoiler warning. If you're just wanting to hear thoughts on Thunderbolts, I have my review on the channel. Go check that out. But here, you should probably back out, unless you're just crazy and you love spoilers, and that's on you. But, as always, leave your thoughts down in the comments, and let's talk Thunderbolts. So I want to start with the Void. I'm not going to rehash a lot of the stuff that I've already talked about. I really loved what Lewis Pullman did with this role, and the character of Bob, and the character of Sentry. But as we transition into the final phase of this movie, and we get into the Void, I just loved how all of the context was brought back around. So you had the conversation that earlier in the movie Yelena and Bob have about like suppressing that void that's within you, and you kind of have that chilling thing going on with his character. It's alluding to the fact that there is something darker within him, and then we get to that. We get to the kill switch being flipped, and then we get to him turning into the Void, and I just loved the layout of it. I loved how he was kind of just a silhouette. He was just a shadow. It wasn't him anymore. It wasn't Sentry. It wasn't Bob anymore, or Robert. He was completely taken over by this void. He let it take control. He let it take the reins, and he kind of buried himself deep inside where they eventually went and found him. And I loved that idea, but also the fact that, like, now knowing that void still exists, it's not like he completely killed the void. So moving into Doomsday, moving into Secret Wars, that is something that we could potentially have to deal with down the line. But in regards to this movie, what that void represented, that darkness, that depression, that kind of thing, that pit that's within all of us, just the stuff that we've all been through, I loved the message that it was sending to the audience and like working through all of that stuff. But at the same time, they use the void and they use all of that to give us this new character in Sentry that is very much like a Vision that we got in Age of Ultron. You know what I mean? After Age of Ultron, you're like, oh, nice, Vision's around now. And then they used Vision as we went along and made him such a prominent character that you truly felt something at the end of WandaVision. You truly felt something at the end of Infinity War. He was somebody that you cared about, and I hope that they can do the same thing with Sentry, because Sentry's insane. He's basically invincible, and I don't really know what you do about that now moving forward into these Avengers movies, because nobody can really stop him. Sure, they can stop the Void, but when they actually just tried to go toe-to-toe with Sentry in this movie, they got demolished. So how do you guys think that they can handle that moving forward? This is almost like a Gia situation from Secret Invasion, where it's like at the end of that, you're like, okay, she is way too overpowered. This is just goofy and doesn't really make sense. I don't think that she's ever even going to show up again, and I think that's just going to be written off. But Sentry, very clearly, it's already been announced that Lewis Pullman is going to be in Avengers Doomsday, so I don't know how they work with how overpowered he is, but it's going to be interesting to see them kind of play off of each other. I also just like the character of Bob a lot, and I really like the Thunderbolts coming together and their camaraderie. It's a cool freaking thing, and as much as, I don't know, it's almost hard to look at the new Avengers, like when they put that on the screen, and it's like the new Avengers, and then you see them walk in, and Winter Soldier, freaking Bucky Barnes, he has like the coiffed hair that's a little bit long, and you're looking at him like, ah, God, what are we doing here? It's kind of a joke, it's kind of a goof, but at the same time, we don't have Avengers right now. Like Sam at the end of Brave New World was putting together a team, but then you hear some dialogue in that post-credit scene talking about how Sam is like not willing to work with them or not willing to join. So what do you think is going to be happening as we go into Doomsday? You know what I mean? It's like, are they all going to eventually come together? Or are we going to have some Civil War type thing 2.0 going on at the beginning of that movie? I think the Thunderbolts as the Avengers is a really fun concept, and it's kind of like the Suicide Squad taking over the mantle of like the main role, you know, as the Justice League. It's kind of cool, but I really think when you look at the Thunderbolts at face value, Yelena is probably the only one that should truly be an Avenger. And there are a lot of other characters out there that I would call Avengers probably over these Thunderbolts. I think Bucky Barnes has probably earned that title more than anybody. I mean, technically he is like an Avenger-ish. He's always been around. He's been a part of the team. But when it comes to like the official Avengers roster, I'm not sure if I see him on it. The people that I do see on it would be like Kate Bishop. I would obviously see Sam Wilson. I would definitely see Shang-Chi. I would definitely see Ant-Man. And then I would see, I don't know, maybe Miss Marvel if they're going in that direction. And there are a ton of other characters that are out there and existing in this world. And so it's kind of hard for me to swallow the fact that, like, are they just going to play this off that these Thunderbolts are the new Avengers? Or how are they going to start Doomsday? And who are actually going to be the Avengers here? Because, not to rant here, I'm just getting ahead of myself, but like, when it comes to these Avengers movies that we're moving into, I just don't want it to feel like a gimmick. I don't want it to feel like there's not a core. I even forgot Peter Parker, you know what I mean? Peter Parker Spider-Man, he needs to be an Avenger. Like, there needs to be a core identity to this film and something that we can rely on. And if it is just like this Avengers team and this Avengers team, and then we have the X-Men, and then we have the Fantastic Four, and oh my gosh, it's a lot of fun. In Infinity War, they did a good job at surrounding you with all of these characters, but there was a core to that movie. I think no matter what, at all times, you had Tony Stark doing something and you had Steve Rogers doing something. You had these pillars of the Avengers taking control and leading different groups and doing things, and it felt like the Avengers were involved. And now moving into an Avengers movie and not really having a proper Avengers team established, I just think that it's going to make for an interesting, let's say, opening 45 minutes of that film. Regardless, I did think it was fun, and I'm not trying to like diss on that at all. It didn't take away from my enjoyment of the movie whatsoever. I freaking loved Thunderbolts. I thought this movie was spectacular. One of the best movies that I've seen from the MCU since Endgame. I'd say Shang-Chi's up there, No Way Home's up there. I know there's a lot of gimmicks in that movie, but just the pure joy that made me feel is freaking bar none. It was just so much fun. But the Thunderbolts is up there now. It really is. It's a top-tier Marvel movie, and I think that they told a great story. I'm very interested just how we move forward, and I feel like they did finally give us some reasons to be invested, because I am intrigued by this new Avengers thing. I was intrigued by some of the comments made in that post-credit scene, talking about Anthony Mackie, talking about Sam Wilson's Captain America and what he's up to. And that's what you want out of these movies. And then getting to the biggest spoiler of all. Obviously, we were talking about post-credits going into this thing. People were hyping it up, saying that it had a fun one, it had a good one, but you just never know what to expect. A lot of these post-credit scenes have just not paid off. The one in Shang-Chi was one of the most important ones I felt. Like watching the rings and like zooming in on it, and there is a beacon, there is a message being sent from it, and you have Captain Marvel there, and you have Hulk there, and they're like, welcome to the circus, you know what I mean, to Shang-Chi, and then we haven't seen him in 4 years. We don't even know what that meant. I mean, maybe it was alluding to Quantumania. I don't even know. Like, I haven't even put that much thought into it because it didn't pay off. But when you watch this post-credit scene, and let's just dive into it, there's something entering the atmosphere. It's a ship. They zoom in on it, and I'm getting chills right now. I'm like getting emotional, but it was just so cool. It turns to the side and it reveals a 4, and you have Michael Giacchino's score, Fantastic Four, that hits so hard, and it just blew my mind, and it felt to me like those old-time post-credit scenes that we all grew up with the MCU watching. I always reference Thor's hammer, but that one was one of the most special to me because it was just this turning point for me where it was like, oh shit, they're doing all of these. They're bringing all of these characters in. This is going to be amazing. And then you got to the shawarma, and then you had some that mattered, and then you had some that didn't matter, and then eventually it kind of has just felt like it's become more of a joke. But this post-credit scene, it took itself seriously. It set up some of that Avengers talk that I was talking about a second ago, and then it showed us that the Fantastic Four is coming to Earth 616. How is that possible when I think a lot of us fans already know that the Earth that the Fantastic Four is from is not 616? Something must have happened. Something must have gotten them here, and what is happening with all that? I have to go watch Fantastic Four now. You know what I mean? That is what the MCU is all about. That feeling that you get watching that post-credit scene. And they even included a joke one. They included the Red Guardian in the supermarket. Yes, that was fun. But when you stay till after the credits, give the audience something to chew on. You know what I mean? Respect the audience's time, because we've all come to understand that we should be staying till after the credits. But if you don't get some sort of validation at the end of that, it almost ruins the movie that you just watched. Like when Anthony Mackie, sorry sorry, I always call him Anthony Mackie. When Sam Wilson goes and he's talking to the leader at the end of Brave New World, and he's like, the others are coming, or something like that. Yes, that's cool. It could be the Illuminati. It could be other Avengers, all of these things coming, and I'm sure it's going to pay off, but it's not as revealing as truly showing a ship that says 4 on it and hearing the score to the next movie. That's the type of stuff that I think that this Marvel fan base wants. And when you're on the outside looking in, I think it's easier to say that than maybe being a part of the MCU and trying to figure all of this stuff out. But as a fan, as somebody who loves watching these movies, to me, it's just so obvious. It's so obvious what they need to be doing every time. There's a certain way to go about these movies and make the audience feel something. And Thunderbolts is the gem of them all. You know what I mean? It uses that formula. It switches things up. It changes up the final act, where instead of blowing up half of New York and having everything go crazy and having the villain be this big end all and the team ends up defeating the villain and it's this big hooray, it's kind of this melancholic, sad, heart-wrenching thing that takes place within the character, within the void, rather than on the outside, and everybody coming together in the end is just the cherry on top. I love the fact that they're able to do that, but it also does make me criticize a little bit maybe the easier nods, the easier movies like the Brave New World, how you can't just have a bit better of a post-credit scene with maybe Yelena doing something, or Red Guardian, or any of these guys, John Walker, any of these characters. Had you just had something, a little breadcrumb, that would have made the Thunderbolts experience then even better. And so that's what makes sense to me. I know there's probably more Easter eggs within this film to talk about, but those were the spoilers that really affected me, especially that post-credit scene. And I wanted to spend some time on that because it did have a massive impact, and it has gotten me so outrageously excited for Fantastic Four, especially with Fantastic Four being the only movie in between us and Doomsday next year. So we're going to see how all that plays out. I know this was a very long rant, and there are plenty of other spoilers that we could talk about, but I am curious to hear from you guys. So please, if you have something you want to talk about, go down to the comments section. I would love to hear from you. Also, what did you think about that post-credit scene? What did you think about the Void? What did you think about the final act of this movie? What do you think about the new Avengers? All of that good stuff. This is a spoiler video, so this would be the place to talk about the spoilers. Also, my friends, make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already. That greatly helps out the channel, but more than anything, make sure to keep up the good vibes, my friends. I'll see you in the next video. Peace!